Yeah, hi all. Welcome to another session of Mock Interviews with Ankit Jain. So this is me, Ankit Jain. So I'm a technical architect at the MNC. I'm 18x certified. I'm active in Salesforce events. This is my LinkedIn URL. Feel free to connect with me. And to be updated on future sessions, you can either join the WhatsApp group. So this is the QR code for that. And this is the URL. And suppose you want to have one-to-one session with me, you can book it on TopMate. And we already have recorded few sessions on Mock Interviews with Ankit Jain YouTube channel. So please like, comment, subscribe, and we have recorded few of the sessions related to the technical interviews, and also there are some technical sessions have been recorded, so feel free to watch that. So today the topic that we are going to cover is large data volume. See, large data volume, by the name itself, you know, like it's the data will be huge. And obviously, like even if you imagine, like nowadays wherever we are interacting with any application, like suppose we use Facebook, Instagram, Google, Gmail and all, they constantly have too much data available about us. So same way, like this data is also some similar kind of situation can happen for our Salesforce as well. Like there could be larger amount of data that will be available in the Salesforce org. Now, whenever this volume becomes larger than the org is, like you are starting to see some impact due to that, we kind of say like it's the large data volume impact. So basically the name wise it's straightforward, it's like a large data volume. So how do you know, like what means, how do I, like I'm a business user, I'm like a company's normal administration head or something. How do I know? I won't go into the org and check like whether the how many records are created. Oh, it is like 1 million records. I won't be doing that. For me, like how I would know about is it will be starting showing me these symptoms. And this is the reason, like I will talk to my technical team, like yes, this is thing is happening. So look about it. So what are the problems that we face? That is the when our business users start to feel the impact of this large data volume. Like what would happen is like when suppose you want to view the data in the list view, it is taking too much time. Like it is slow to the level that users are getting frustrated. Like it is taking too much long. And like suppose you have a custom UI. In that UI, like the data is not coming up. You are getting like when the developers debug, they are seeing the in the debug log that quite a timeout. And suppose you give a sandbox, which you have gone, suppose you have a full copy sandbox that you want to refresh. So that would like, since the say full copy sandbox is a copy of our original production itself, right? So it would also take too much time because the data is huge, because it needs to copy all the data. So this is kind of situations come in, and your reports and dashboard, like reports are very important for the business users. Like suppose I'm a business user. As for CRM, like what it means for me is like I have the data and now I want to see the analytics, the reports dashboard. If those are not usable to me, I'm well, like what is the point of having the CRM? Like that means I should be able to make the most out of it, right? Otherwise it is no use. The record locking error. So record logging errors does happen. Like suppose if like you're trying to update a lot of related records, like on the account contact. So that those scenarios where we can have the record locking error. Ideally, it doesn't happen, but because the volume is huge, it takes too much time, and so you get record locking errors. And sometimes, like this situation is very worst situation. Like sharing calculation take too much time and error out. This situation I have not seen in any org as of now, but it is like the worst, and nothing can go beyond bad beyond this. Like you're sharing rules like that you have set, these are not getting executed. You're getting these are getting erroring out, and the very means the very basic is the record pages take too much time to load. Like imagine you're clicking on an opportunity record, and it is taking like 5 minutes to load. You're like, why will I wait so much time? It is irritating. and we just see the technical aspect, like yes, these things are happening, but for imagine for a business user, these many things, it is decreasing the productivity, right? So that is the reason, like those users complain to the technical team, like why it is happening in, and then we have to come up with some resolution of this large data volume. So these things we'll be talking about today. Any questions so far? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question, because this is very important. Like you need to understand, like why do I care? Like my life was going very much smoothly, I was enjoying my life. Why would I know, like if it is, or there are some records, if there is, instead of 1 lakh records, it is like 5 lakh records. Why, as a business user, does it matter to me? No. What it matters to me, like if it is giving me the desired results, I'm good with that. But it gives me these problems, then I'm worried. And that's why I actually care about this. Any questions so far? Please be very much vocal about any confusion you have, or you want me to elaborate more. And if suppose, like I will be just pausing the recording for a minute. But yeah, so these are the things like why I actually care about the large data volume. Now we'll go to the next part. Now, see, there are two things out of this. First thing is you actually solve the issue. Like, see, what by the name itself, we know like it is large data volume. If suppose I reduce the volume, then entirely this thing will not happen, right? That is the very basic algorithmic approach that we see. But suppose, like, instead of there's a, because you're constrained to have the data in Salesforce, you can't remove the data. Then what can be done? So this first set of solutions that we go with are actually not solving the large data volume, but we are reducing the impact. Understand it very much clearly. It is like there's some infection in your body. Instead of curing the infection, and because of like infection in the body, you are getting fever. Now what you are solving for is like to remove the fever. It is like that. So these are the solutions that we go with. First is like parallel sharing rule recalculation. So what happens is like sharing rules can do run us, means we can in normal scenario, actually what happens is like whenever you have a sharing rule, it gets calculated synchronously. Synchronously means in a specific sequence, like immediately. But if yeah, you are having such errors and your sharing rules are getting are erroring out, you can request Salesforce, like this is the problem, and you make it asynchronously. So they would configure the this in the org. So that way your problem would be solved. This is one way. Second is deferring sharing rule. Deferring means halting. It is like you're applying a brake, like don't do it now, wait for some time. So what happens is like when you know like these sharing rules calculations happen only when you're mostly changing the role hierarchies, or you're changing the hierarchy of data. So these things, that time only the sharing rule calculation happens. So what you do is like you make all the adjustments, group membership and all of those, and then you have disabled the sharing rule calculation. So after you're done making all the changes, then you make sure like only once you're enabling it, when everything is happening in. Let me like if let me just rephrase this statement, like so for clarity. What I would do is like if so, it is like suppose your mom has told you like in when you were a child, like don't watch the TV. So but watch it after studying. So what you do is like you pretend to study so that you can watch TV. So what you do is like you do everything, and then uh, once the mom is gone, you again start to watch TV. So like that, you're deferring the calculation. Like it won't happen immediately. You are saying sales was like, I don't want this calculation to happen right now. You wait for the moment, like when everything is done. Then you enable it. Any confusion on these two? Because this is important. You need to understand this. like around the sharing rule, like how do we tackle this problem for sharing rule or sharing calculation? I take it as a no. Basically, what happened? Yeah. So the next is granular locking. Granular locking by default in the org gets enabled only. So what happens is like it's like how much degree of parallelism you can do. So what happens is like some objects which are not related, say so says like you do those calculation independent. Like suppose you want to make updates to account hierarchy, and then at the same time like you also make changes to suppose a custom object. So both if both are not related, then those calculations will execute parallelly. And that locking would happen only if the things are very much related. So that is about the granular locking. We are clear on these three things? I will just pause it. Now, this was about just the sharing rule calculation. We'll go to the next one. Second is skews. Skews actually what happens is like means sharing rule calculation actually sometimes what has been means what happens is like suppose on an account you have more than 10,000 contacts, or on a custom object you have like suppose you have a custom object named Oracle quote, and you have Oracle quote line item more than 10,000 Oracle quote line items associated to that single one. So whenever an update related to that same parent would happen in, you will get the errors, record locking errors, and the sharing rule calculation would also be disturbed. So for that situation, what you do is like you avoid, try to remove the skews. What you do is like if suppose there was a parent which was having more than 10,000 child records, what you would say is like it is like it is that what you try to do is like you try to make the distribution uniform. And how do you do it? Simple. You create the parent, you increase the number of parent records. Like suppose there were like one account had 10,000 contacts. What we can do is like we can create some placeholder account records which could be child of that same of that placeholder accounts. So what would happen is instead of one account there would be say 101 placeholder accounts, and the one would be a real one, and then you can tie those child records child contacts to those accounts only, so that way the distribution would be uniform, and now your performance and everything would be much better. Are we clear on this, that skewing of data and how is it related? Are we clear on this?
Yes, Ankit.
Don't say yes for the just for the sake of saying it. Unless you are clear, be very much vocal about it.
Ankit, what do you mean by placeholder account?
Placeholder means like you're creating some accounts which actually don't were not already in place, but you created
Mm-hmm.
those just for the purpose of
Recording
uniform
child.
distribution. Yes.
Okay. And suppose one parent account is having 5,000 opportunities and 5,000 contact records. Still, we will be facing this skew
No, 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 no,
issue.
no, no,
Only
no.
a single child record.
Yes,
Means single
correct.
child object. Okay.
Yeah. Any other question?
No, Ankit, that's it.
Okay. So when this skew problem happens specifically with account, we call it account data skew. So like what we just discussed, like suppose that account and contact, like suppose you have like too many contacts that you place it under one unassigned account, that scenario will happen, this the account that will be called as account data skew. So your record locking would happen. Same way happens with your actually yeah, that is a different ownership skew, but yeah. So this thing happens in like you have one account and you have multiple contacts or you have opportunities. So if suppose there's like too much, like more than 10,000, we consider talk about it as a skew. So to tackle that, we just increase the number of records. So that way your performance will be improved and you would not get locking issues. Now for the same is like ownership skew. Ownership skew and data skew is kind of similar. Like there the concept was like one parent account had multiple child contacts, but here the scenario is like one user is having more than is the owner of more than 10,000 records. And so that time, like whenever that user's hierarchy will be changing in, that time the entire calculation would be too much high and it would start failing in. So that means this is a after effect, like this calculation would fail and sharing rules would fail out. So this problem we call it as ownership skew. It happened because you had like one, like normally, or it's like what we see is like all the data that is coming from integration is the only one person, the only one integration user we have, and he's the owner of all those records in. So this ownership skew happens in, but for some scenarios, like we can't help it. Like integration user, like it, the license is too much costly, so you can't have multiple integration users in. So what we suggest is like we keep it at the very top of the hierarchy, or we don't even give them a role, and we remove them from any public group, which will be used for sharing rules. That way, like we will be still be able to do our work. Still, ownership skew will happen, but you will not feel the impact. And what we are solving for is the impact of this large data volume or data skew or whatever things we are talking in. Are we clear? Yeah, so we are done with this ownership skew. We understood the problem that we had, like sharing rule table would get disturbed and it caused the sharing rule calculation and all of those things. And for solving that, we also know like we can place the, that's how like you notice like the integration user does not have a role in any org you see. So that because those architects already know like it would cause a problem for combating with the impact, they have placed at the top of the hierarchy and don't have the role at all, and they have not kept it that person in any public group. Next is lookup skew. Lookup skew is actually like whatever we had talked about, like this data skew and all, it's like the same thing. It's just a new terminology. Other than that, the concept and all remains the same, like more than 10,000 records. And why it is bad, because like you get locking issues that are there in record locking errors you get. So that's the reason like we are worried about this lookup skew. And then how do we solve it? So what we do is we see for solving the lookup skew problem, like what we are getting out of the lookup skew is the locking issue only, right? So we are solving just for that specific purpose. Like locking error should not come in. So how do I solve it? Like reducing the record save time. And how do I do that? What I can do is like I can the SOQL, like I should, instead of synchronous epics, I'll go with asynchronous. And then instead of having multiple automations, I will try to have just one automation. Like if you're going with trigger only, go with trigger. If you're having like multiple triggers, like make it into single trigger only. Wherever possible, like have only one automation, because these locking errors mostly have been associated with multiple automations only. So you just do that and your problem would be solved. Yeah, any question, like, please feel free to ask.
Ankit, can we use the group by operator?
Where? Yeah,
Uh,
in the SQL, like, that is one way of tackling it. But that also, I think, you still, if the volume is high, you will still get those errors. So foolproof solution is like avoiding multiple automations only. And what you are saying about like group by operator, yes, that is a option that we do for avoiding the record locking. But still, your sharing calculation and all would still happen. That issues will still happen. That will not be solved using your group by operator.
it comes under account skew, right?
That comes under whichever skew. Like even I can talk about it as a part of lookup skew. I can talk about it if it's for account object, I will call it account data skew. Whichever way we want to talk about it, it is a skew. Any other question? I take it as a no. The second, how do I solve it? Like distributing this queue. So as we mentioned about the account, like you create placeholder records so that we can distribute it. Third is we use a pick list. Like see, what happens is like, suppose you know like there are like one or two options only that are records that are possible values only. Like in the lookup relationship, means in the lookup record, like there are one or two records only that could be possible. So instead of having that exact lookup, what we do is like we create a pick list value. So we use a pick list value in that scenario. And then what we do is like suppose wherever we want to use that, we get the pick list value and then based whatever the value is presented in the pick list, then we do a query on that record. Like suppose I know like in the manager, there can be only two persons who could be the manager. Like suppose like uh, Astro and Cody. So instead of having creating a lookup field, what I do is like I just put up those two names, and then what I do is like in the code wherever I have to use that, I take that value Astro and then again do a query on the user where the name equal to Astro or wherever the name equal to Cody. So instead of lookup, I'm making it a soft lookup. You got the point?
Ankit, can you explain soft lookup?
Yes,
Yeah,
soft
soft
lookups.
lookup. Like see, what we do in the lookup, we see like suppose on the opportunity we have like account lookup. Okay. Now what happens is like if suppose I in the org there are two or four account records only. So in such scenario, instead of lookup like and we know like for the, like in future as well, they won't not have multiple accounts. So what we do is like instead of creating a lookup field, we create a pick list value with the names of those accounts or with the any other property like any unique identity. So which the user will know. So while select means select instead of select searching that record on the lookup, they will just select that field in the drop down. Are you able to relate or I shall explain more? If not, then I will try to explain it in the org. I guess I think there should be. And this was around using a pick list field, so that we're all kind of removing the lookup field need itself. And the last way that we solve the lookup skew is like reducing the load. We have the less records linked to that same parent. That way we solve this problem. The next is like we talked about like these all whatever methods that we seen so far. These were not actually solving the problem. They were just overcoming the impacts. So data problem you're not solving, that your data is too much large. So you need to get rid of that. What we were instead doing is like, suppose your query would time out, no? What you can do is like remove this data skewing, try to use the picklist field, try to use custom index and all of those other things we were doing it, but we're not actually cleaning the data. But now the second solution approach is around keeping the data outside of Salesforce and reducing the data that is to be kept in Salesforce. So what we do in that scenario is like we use external objects. External objects are like objects which actually don't store the data, but they get us the skeleton will be in Salesforce, but the data will be coming up in real time through the APIs. So whichever data possible, like we keep that data in external system only, and very limited data which we need, we get that. But then you will tell me like, if suppose like but how do I link it with other objects? So yes, we can have the external lookups and indirect lookups. Now, what is an external lookup? External lookup is like it does is like you have a parent would be a external object, and the child record would be a external object, or it could be a standard or custom object as well. Suppose you have a field called as Oracle quote underscore X. Under that, you want to link the quote line item. So that relationship that you will have to set it up would be external lookup. This you will be able to relate only if you have worked on Salesforce Connect or have gone through the Trailhead. So this is around external lookup. Indirect lookup is like the parent would be your standard or custom object, and external object would be the child record. The terminologies are a bit confusing, so if anybody has any doubt, so please let me know. I take it as a no, so we'll just move forward. Next is like we had the problem of page loading. So what we can do is like whatever objects, like in the regular page, like sometimes we have any related list as well. So if you are having data skew, so or lookup skew, then your related list would count to be too much large. So what you do is like in the org you have a setting like enable separate loading of related list. So you can enable this. So what would happen is like whatever data that you want to say see of a related of a object, like say account, that will get loaded faster, but the related list records would be coming up later only, so that at least the performance is not so much bad that the customer is irritated, right? The next we were talking about the issue of timeout, query in timeout. Are you able to relate? Like we saw initially, this was one of the impacts that we were facing due to large data volume. So how do we solve it? So reduce the number of fields that you want to query. Whatever fields you actually need, only those fields you query. Don't query too many fields. And then you denormalize the data. Like suppose your like joins actually reduce the performance of a query, to be very fair. So in scenarios like whether you want to, you're getting the data from multiple objects, what you do is like create a custom object, whatever like you were fetching data from multiple objects, for your reports, instead of that, what you do is like you create an object, populate it with the data coming from all the objects, and then report on that single object only. So instead of multiple querying joins, you would be having just one single object. So that would improve your performance of a query. It is like you're having 5 experts, like and for a decision maker, he has to coordinate with all the 5 people to make a decision. So it would be great like if a single person knows all of it. So the decisions could be made quite quicker. So it's like that. So next is like determine like whether you want to use SQL or SOSL based on the conditions. Like see, if suppose you want to query the data faster, SOSL is much more faster than SOQL. But there are like limitations obviously, but performance wise SOSL is faster. So when your queries use custom indexes wherever possible, like you can ask Salesforce, like few fields are automatically indexed by Salesforce, like a system out stamp would be therein, or any lookup field that is therein. So but if you have any custom field that you would want to index, you can ask Salesforce for that and they would be doing that. So what happens is like sometimes your filter condition, like does anybody know about query editor, not query editor, query optimizer in the developer console?
No,
No? Okay, 1 minute. Go in the org. Not this org, 1 minute. Query planner, sorry, I was saying, sorry, my bad. Open query planner is the 1 minute. Let me just see like where did it went away. I've seen it.
it was in preference in
Yeah,
help.
preferences, it's there. We enabled it.
Yeah, beside execute, we have query.
Yeah, there is somewhere like I'm not able to
No, in the bottom.
be- below near to execute button.
execute
No,
button.
No,
Where the execute button is there? Execute last.
where,
Here only somewhere it is there. I don't recollect on top of my head.
no. Can you use beside the used tooling API beside?
Tooling
The,
app. Okay. Yeah, query planner. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so here whenever suppose you put a query,
Mhm.
so this way like then Salesforce tries to see what is the cardinality score, and so it guides you like which fields are getting indexed, which are you using index field or not. So that way it tells you about those things. And so if your field is indexed, the cost reduces. So that's why the query could be faster. And suppose you're having where clause with multiple across objects, try if that query is timing out, then you try to decompose it into multiple queries and then combine the results. And avoid using not equal to null. Instead of using not equal to null, try to see like what is the filter you can add in. And suppose you're having like wherever possible, try to use bulk API for large data. Okay. So that was it about the query optimization. And next is like skinny table. Like see what happens is like you tried everything, but still the performance is not increasing, your list view is still timing out, you're not able to report. So what you do is like you basically what skinny table is using the same concept that we learned earlier. Instead of instead of having the data inside multiple objects, it means having multiple joins, create a custom object. So here that custom object is a skinny table. So in skinny table, there could be only 100 fields, and what exactly fields you need for reporting in list views, you just use that fields and add it there. And you will have to ask Salesforce for creating that. And you will have to not means direct, you will have to get that copied over to all the other except full copy sandbox. All the other sandbox you will have to get it done from Salesforce only. So it uses the concept like there are no joins, like there's no lookup at all. It's like only from one object you have the directed normal field, primitive data types only you have. So it's a bit faster, so at least your work could be done. Okay, this is the how what we are talking about the skinny table, and that's how it helps us. Are we clear on this?
Ankit, is it like a custom object?
It's actually not custom object, but it is like a object that you will have to get that created from Salesforce. Basically, what will happen in that scenario is like in your code, like wherever you're written, like select ID from say account, you have the uh, actual query. So what it will do is like wherever instead of query, if you've enabled the skinny table, instead of your actual account table, it would go to the accounts skinny table and then get data from it, so that your work like your list views and reports will be able to work now as normal only. It is not a custom object. It is like a feature standard only, but you will have to get that enabled from Salesforce. Okay.
Okay, is it like a catchy memory?
It's not cache also. It is like a normal object only without any lookups and with only 100 fields. See, here you are not actually solving the problem. What you are solving is the impact. My problem was that I was not able to use the list view. I was not able to do the reporting. But with this custom skinny table being enabled, I can select only those fields. I will select only those fields which I need in the list views and reporting. So that way my work would be I will be able to do my work without any problem. So this is it.
For this skinny table, do we need to connect with Salesforce? They
Yes.
will all do. Okay.
Yeah. We can't do that. We'll have to ask Salesforce to get that enabled.
Okay. Also, can we use multiple objects field in the same skinny table, or do we need to create?
No.
Okay.
That is the catch. Like you can't have any lookups.
No, I am saying let's say I have two account and contact. Can I
Okay.
add some field from account and some from contact? Is it possible?
No, you will have to have like separate objects only. And what you can do is like you can try to denormalize it. Like suppose in contact, you can create a custom field like say account type. So this will not refer the actual account table, but you will have that value as a denormalized one.
Okay.
So it won't take the actual reference, but it would take the value whatever is available in that database only. It won't check the original account record and see the value that is linked.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is on the skinny table, and then the report. What do I do to improve the report? So what you can do is like reduce the number of joins. Like all are kind of summarizing out to like you have only one object for reporting and uh, doing the query, or wherever possible reduce the number of joins and have just one object for getting summarized information. and don't over denormalize. The more you try to create the tables and have joins, the more it would be performance would degrade. And then use only the objects which means limited objects, whichever you need. The more you do, the more it will be slowed, means the performance would degrade. And archive whatever records you don't need. Use filters which are like standard or custom indexed only. It follows a similar fashion that we use for the SOQL only. Other than that, the things are the same only. Any questions so far on this? It is a tough one. So take your time, try to digest it, whatever I am saying in. I take it as a no. I think this was the rest was it, like whatever I had. Any questions or anything like anybody wants to ask? Feel free to ask the questions. I try to simplify the things in the best way I can. Yes, Venkatesh, I think you have some question.
Can we use the third-party tools? There is a recently the Salesforce had own company, right? That is
Yeah, that is for different use case. See, what you're talking about is like archiving solution, right?
mm,
So archiving is another solution, yes. So that comes under the category of like you store, you get only means you pull the data on say in Salesforce which you actually need. Other than that, you keep it outside of Salesforce, and whenever you need, then you use the Salesforce Connect or third-party tools to get the data inside of Salesforce. So
okay.
it's like the same way. They have purchased their own company, but that solves a different purpose. That like archiving solution, backup solution. It's more to do with that and data protection and all of those.